I'm very delighted to see that one or two colleagues who came yesterday have come to this workshop as well. In England we say you're a glutton for punishment. That's to say, you know. So thank you for coming back. Now the whole point of this is not for me to talk for very long, but it is important I just put a frame around what we're going to try and do. I've learnt a lot about Beaconhouse in the last sort of couple of days. I knew a bit about the organisation before, obviously, but I've learnt a good deal in the last couple of days about its belief in its workforce. It gives its teachers status and it believes in their development. I know that's true all around the world. In some countries that's more of a cliche than a truth. Okay? Lots of governments say, oh, we want a wonderful workforce, we want to develop all our teachers. But actually, at the bottom line, what they want is good results. And that's really what they want. Beaconhouse has impressed me by its authenticity, its belief in the integrity of its teaching workforce. So from that point of view, I hope today's workshop will be very much about yourselves and what you believe in about development. I have got a printout of the overhead, which is quite brief, and I'll give that out later. At the moment, we're going to work for about 10 minutes just as a large group all together, and almost the rest of the whole workshop will be you working in self-chosen groups and reporting back towards the end on what you think. So, what is a learning community? Well, we don't know exactly. There are all kinds of varieties and versions of a learning community. And one of the issues for us today is not that I know more than you know, but what is the learning community that you feel you are a part of? Your school perhaps, your department in your school, your group of schools. Those could all be learning communities. And to what extent are they operating in a way that at the moment makes you feel that they are a community of learners as opposed to just a group of people? So obviously we're going to ask you to think hard about the situation as it truly exists at the moment for you. We're going to think about the idea that we all want to improve. How can we do that as a community of learners? Not necessarily expecting somebody from outside to come in and stimulate us. We've had several stimulating plenaries in the last couple of days, and that's a very good thing. But that's not something which is very sustainable. Most of the time we're working every day in our classrooms, we're very busy, and we only have a few minutes perhaps for turning attention to our own development. How do we do that? And it's pretty obvious that every single individual, every single school department, every single primary and secondary school has got certain characteristics that affect it. Culture, obviously. Here I am coming from whatever is my culture to what is your culture, and we can talk to each other, we can appreciate it, but even an individual school may have quite a well-defined culture, or it may have a culture which is not very well-defined but is quite strong. And so sometimes the school community needs to think, well, what is it that we have in common? What are our differences? Where are our differences creative and helpful? Where are they problematic? So we know that we have to take the idea of not just the larger culture we work in, but each school's culture as a serious factor in how teachers themselves can deploy their learning and skills. Obviously every school, every teacher has a history. In this room we have very young colleagues, some with a lot of experience, like me, who've been around a little while, and that history has imprinted itself on us whether we like it or not. So in looking at a community of learners, you can't avoid the fact that people are at different stages of learning, come with different attitudes to it. Some of them have been, as it were, imposed on them, others they have adopted. So we have to take those things very seriously. So part of the conversations in a few minutes have to be about yourselves. What is the history of the school you're in? Why is it at the stage of development that it's at? So we won't make an assumption, even if everybody in the room is a teacher from Beaconhouse, and that may not be the case, but even if they are, that somehow means the same thing to everybody. Some people have been with Beaconhouse, as we saw last night, for 30 years, some for 1. So different histories are present. They are resources for us. And those who bring a different history from a different organisation or set of cultures brings some resource to the table. In the room, I've no idea at the moment. We may have secondary, primary, teachers of a specialist subject. Again, that's all a benefit to us, but it needs talking about before people know, as we say, where you are coming from with your interest in school-based learning. And everybody, but everybody, is affected by external factors. And though the theme of the conference very powerfully is, wouldn't it be nice if we didn't have to spend all our time worrying about tests and exam results? Wouldn't that be nice? The fact is we have to at the moment. However much we aspire to change that, those factors will play strongly on every teacher. And as was pointed out in the opening speech today, when a parent sits across the table from you, perhaps especially in a school system that is a private system, they're going to say, I'm paying you for a result. Where is that result? That may be completely wrong as an attitude, but it's a pressure, it's a reality. So with all aspirations to move beyond that system, at the moment we're within it, and we have to therefore learn from ourselves and each other how we can change that system over time. So today we're interested in what I'd call positive critique. All right? It's important that we're critical today. You've come here because Beaconhouse have given you the opportunity, but I hope Beaconhouse would not be interested in you just saying, going away and saying, thank you very much, that's that. It's stimulated your thinking, to think about change. And you've got ideas about change and what would be the best change for your school or your area. And I'm sure people in Beaconhouse want to hear that. They want that information to come up from you. We want to know what we have in common. But also we're here because we're different. School-based learning communities are interested in difference because it raises questions, it raises issues. It gets rid of assumptions that, oh, we all know what we're doing, we're all the same. Lots of ideas to share, problems, solutions, that's what we're here to do. Wouldn't it be lovely if, from this particular session, and from this group, not me, you took away at least one exciting idea for your school and your context. So this has to be a workshop, which is a workshop. You've got to do the work. All right? And the work's got to come from you. It's got to come from you working in groups that you think you can learn something from. So, that's what I am today. Only a facilitator. Yesterday in my workshop, I was a bit more of a presenter. This afternoon, I'm just a presenter. You know, we can move between roles. So, I'd like to think, even in this slightly crowded space, and though it'll be slightly physically awkward to move around, we'll see if we can do it. I'd like you to try and make a choice of what you want to focus on. Okay? So, what I'm going to say finally, before I finish talking, is what do I think, that's all it is, about some of the things that would characterise a school which is probably already working towards being a school-based learning community. It will have regular continuing professional development, led by its own staff. It will have some inputs from external staff of all sorts. It will send its colleagues out to do courses. It will often have things going on in the school about change. I'm going to call them working parties. You might have a better term, where we say, this isn't quite what we want. Let's get some people together who are interested in this area, give them the brief to give us some new ideas. Leadership and teachers are in dialogue, and that's explicit. You know, it's not grace and favour, it's not personal. It's the idea that leadership's always listening to its workforce. Inevitably, it means innovation is normal. So the classroom is a place where you can feel you can do interesting, innovative things, and that is acceptable. That's not something to worry about. New ideas come into the school, not, to use Richard's term from this morning, initiatives from the government or the system, but ideas. There's lots of observation of teachers by teachers for learning. Not performance management, not judgment, because you think that colleague is doing something interesting, so you want to be in their room, and vice versa. There are some things some schools do, like the originally Japanese model of lesson study. Just in case people aren't familiar with it, it's a quite simple idea of development whereby a group of teachers work together and they design a single lesson or teaching episode. It might be teaching poetry to 8-year-olds, it might be teaching an aspect of physics, and they design what they think will be a very good lesson. They all teach it, they get together, and they simply say, how did it go for you? What did you learn from teaching it? They share that idea, they design another lesson, and so on and so forth. It's certainly one sort of way of working, which is slightly more formally about learning and knowledge than just say, how did your lesson go today? It's got more focus, and it tends to stimulate quite a lot of change and growth. It doesn't cost anything. Okay? Because actually you just teach the lesson, and then you bring your ideas to the meeting. There's no time to observe each other. You could do that, So you could not get, if you like, a simpler, more cost-effective model of looking at common aspects of teaching. Stimulated recall is just the idea that if I'm doing this and I'm being filmed, aren't I lucky, I can watch this later and it will help me remember what I said and how I said it. Yesterday we were talking about reflective practice and how capturing good teaching or just teaching allows us to look not only at what that person was doing, but that person can then remember what it was they were thinking at the time. So you can have your lesson videoed and then share it with colleagues in the school-based learning community, and you can remember what you were thinking at the time. Gives you a lot more insight into what you were doing and insight for your colleagues into what you were trying to do. Okay, other things that mark out a school that's got real, I think, community-based learning characteristics are specific support for different sorts of teacher. Beginning teachers, head teachers, those sorts of things. Everyone can have a mentor when they need one. So if you need someone to just be advising, helping you, not judging you, supporting you, you get that. And everyone gets feedback whenever they want it. Okay, at whatever level. Finally, at the more sort of school level, school policies tend to be agreed by staff. They're not imposed by senior leadership. They are an agreement between the whole team. Everyone is the opportunity to do long-term development. It's encouraged, it's supported. And there is career counselling. What do I mean? I mean not just development, shall we say, within Beaconhouse. Okay? People may never want to leave the system, fine. But a school that takes the idea of development seriously says, you want to be a better teacher, and if you're a better teacher and that allows you to leave, get a better job somewhere else, that's fine, because what we want is children to have good teachers. So career counselling is not just about can you be better for this school, it's can you be a better teacher anywhere, and we're interested in helping you become that. That's one definite marker of a school-based learning community as opposed to just a good school. Finally, I hope, knowledge sharing systems. A lot of schools now, of course, have got virtual learning environments, but not all. But they're really the same thing, which is environments where information can be shared. So there's a place in the school where there's a library, or where teachers can put examples of their teaching. It's just an idea of a place where we can all go to share learning. And of course it encourages investigation. We want to know how we're doing with this, let's do some research about it, let's do some action research about it. And finally, and certainly this is a very common theme in England now, the use of students, student feedback, student voice, as part of the school learning about itself. That's quite a radical step for people. Certainly in some schools in England it's been seen as a really significant step forward. I'll pause there. Now, has anything I've said require a bit of clarification or a bit more detail? That's a long list. You'll have that list in a minute. Okay. Okay. What I'd like you to do now, try and toward into the mic, is just do a quick checklist of your own individual school. I don't know whether we've got quite enough in the room, but we'll see. So I'm just going to do an old-fashioned thing and say, if you take one and just have them between two to begin with, so if we just share them to start with,